Words of Radiance is Brandon Sanderson's second book in the Stormlight Archive series. This is a sci-fi fantasy series set in a medieval type atmosphere, kind of like Game of Thrones. There's a little bit of magic, a little bit of medieval, and yeah, very fantasy. So I enjoyed this one as much, actually even more than the original. Way of Kings is the first book. The first book is 1,000 pages. This is 1,303 pages with 90 chapters. So it's a hefty book. Like, this is paperback and it is sizable. So know what you're getting into. Audiobook if you can. There's a map and some drawings, so that won't come through on the audiobook. But this was quite a novel that I really enjoyed. So, it's unusual for me to like a sequel better than the original, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. The whole universe revolves around storms, specifically high storms, and their economy is based on spheres that get recharged during a high storm, and it's really something that people shelter inside. It would be like almost like a tornado warning or a severe tornado storm. Stuff gets thrown around, lightning, thunder, the whole works. And really, so people stay inside. They have whole professions that predict the storms. So there are some tie-ins to, like, weathermen and stuff like that. And even their language is dictated. They have storming man and storm it all and storms take this person, that kind of thing. And I really like that they have, unique languages. They call their people high princes, bright lord, bright lady, brightness, that kind of thing. And really, it is kind of fun. It is close enough to Western culture that it is relatable, but at the same time, it is unique. And what really makes this universe special is the spren. The first book in the Way of Kings, there wasn't a ton of behind the scenes on the spren. They were there, they were cool, but there wasn't like a lot of description. And for this, there is all kinds of different spren that you didn't interact with in the first book, but also you go behind the scenes, what makes them work, why they're there. Really, really cool. I loved that part of this book. And some of my favorite characters from the first book were Shallan is by far my favorite character, and this book focuses on her quite a bit. Her backstory, it goes through her entire backstory, and you spend a lot of time with Shallan, and I really, really liked that about this book. My second favorite characters were Zahil, the Master Swordsman Monk, and Wit, of course. He is always a lot of fun. Rock and Lupin were my third favorite group of characters. They were a close third, but again, enjoyable characters. There's lots of conflict. There's lots of experimentation. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of magic. It was just a lot of fun. The first one had a lot of politics. This one has a little bit of politics, but it was very enjoyable. Things I didn't like: Jazana Cullen, she goes down with the ship. I feel like Shallan should have had more training. They just started talking to each other about their spren, about their powers and stuff. So, like, Shallan really doesn't have a mentor. She kind of has to figure it out on her own. And I know that was intentional, but I felt like Shallan should have had more time and more training. So I wasn't a big fan of that. But there is some changes towards the end, so I won't give it away. Another thing was the mentor, right? Shallan runs into Trin, and I think it's like a week of mentorship before Trin dies. So it's kind of like, I just felt like Jazana was her original mentor, and Shallan is constantly asking herself, what would Trin do? And I feel like she was with Jazana Cullen longer, so I feel like that would be a better person to look up to. But at the same time, like, her sneaking around and being stealthy, she needed to think like Trin. So part of her powers are about the lies and the truths and, illusions. So it really fit really nicely, but at the same time, I feel like that role could have been filled by Jazana. Oh well. those are the last thing that I didn't like was capturing the Spren. In the interludes, you see from the Prashandi, and I really like that perspective, but they capture Spren. It doesn't talk about how they capture them, it just says that they do. And, I feel like capturing one would be really challenging, let alone thousands. So to me, that was kind of it kind of got glossed over, and I would have liked to learn more about that, but not a big deal. Those were the only things that I didn't like. The rest of the book was really enjoyable. There wasn't any part where it was slow. I didn't feel like I was trudging along, so I enjoyed that. Really, the things I did like, Pattern is a really cool Spren. He hums to himself and kind of gives Shallan away, almost like she has to cover for him because he's making noise when, she should be alone. So that was fun. Learning more about Spren, I talked about that already. That was a lot. That was part of why I enjoyed this book so much more than the original. The honor blades versus shard blades, that was really interesting, but we didn't start finding out towards the end. And about halfway through, they start talking about screaming and stuff like that. So it's really unique what they do, the author does with the shard blades and the honor blades. I really enjoyed that. That is great for this series. Shallan and Kaladin's first meeting with the boots, that took the cake. I was like, man, I'm getting into this book. It's kind of, not much is happening. And then boom, they meet for the first time, and Shallan is doing her illusions and trying to, get Kaladin to let her through to the city, to the war camp, and that part was perfect. I smiled, I enjoyed it, and really, it shadowed their interactions throughout the rest of the book, and to me, it was just perfect. It was the perfect scene. Navini's Fabrials, that's really cool. She is, kind of a secondary character, but what she does is just so cool, and half the kingdom runs on her invention, so it's really neat that they had an inventor there. That just was really, really cool. The teasing of Dalinar for his visions at the feast, that to me was, a very political move, and it fit just perfectly. And his reaction, I've got a quote later here that I'm going to read from that section, but it just was spot on. I really liked that part. Also enjoyed the Prashandi side of things. You got to see the perspective from the opposite end. These humans are traveling across these bridges and trying to attack us and steal the gem hearts. You saw it from the other side. I really enjoyed that. Adolin, he's one of the perspective characters, right? You view from his viewpoint, and I kind of pictured him from the first book as kind of like a spoiled rich kid, like Kaladin sees him. However, he really does have more depth, and we get to know him a little bit better, and he does have a little bit of backstory, which I hope goes into in the future books. But his first duel, right? He kind of thinks back to that and how poorly it went. Yeah, really great book, great setting. The magic is cool. The oaths, there's a whole history that happened hundreds of years beforehand that shadows this whole experience. There is more of a religious aspect to this, and it kind of ties back into Western, almost like a Christian. They talk about the Almighty, the heralds, right? That could be God and the prophets. And really, it's relatable, but it's not overwhelming. And I think it was just right. These people have direction in the novel. They have guidance. They have rituals. They have things that they do, traditions that they follow based on the way things work. Just really great. The characters are all amazing. It just was a great book. A long one, but a great book. So some of the quotes, Jazana talking with Shallan on the boat, really, she's like, you always are so poised and stuff. So Jazana says, power is an illusion of perception. Authority exists only as it's perceived. So really, she has the Stormlight, so she can kind of have like an illusion, right? She is more poised and people see her in a different light than what she actually was born with. So I like that quote. It stood out to me. Another one with Shallan and Pattern. Your truth is what you see. Truth is individual. Shallan's kind of learning her powers, and Pattern is like, you know, there is truth, but it's from you as your truth. And that was really neat. Hit me pretty hard, like postmodern perspectives, all that stuff, all packed into one little easy, simple sentence. It was very powerful sentence, and I liked it. So, Wit, always a lot of fun. He is talking with Kaladin when Kaladin's in jail. And, you know, of course, he plays the fleet, you know, racing the storm. He plays that song, and Kaladin fills in the blanks. Wit says, all people are musicians. The question is whether or not they share their music. Very cool. We're all artists. We all have stories. We all have experiences, and we can choose whether or not to share them. So that was a lot of fun. Really great. Kaladin is, you know, learns from that, and he says, you know, the storm catches everyone eventually, or Wit says to Kaladin, the storm catches everyone eventually. Does it matter? We all die in the end. It matters how we live, not how we die. So I thought that was very insightful, very cool. Dalinar, again at the feast, right? They just revealed that he gets the visions, and they kind of like made a mockery of him and poked fun at him. This is the act of childish men who assume I can be embarrassed by the truth. So, wow. It really tells how you react to things. You know, if you look guilty, maybe you'll be perceived as guilty. If you look like you're leading the way, maybe you'll be perceived as a leader. So very interesting. A lot of this is perception, talks about truth and lies, but yeah, really perception is a big part of this novel. And I think Brandon Sanderson did a really good job of blending that in. He doesn't beat you over the head with it. He kind of layers it and flavors it, and so that it isn't just a, here it is. It's kind of woven into the story, and I really like that. So this quote here is Shallan. You are able to not admit that they are lies. It frightens me. Why? It is wonderful. To him, Pattern, she was an object of study. It frightens me, Shallan said, because we all see the world by some kind of light personal to us, and that light changes our perception. I don't see clearly. I want to, but I don't know if I ever truly can. She's seeking the truth, but it doesn't, like, she's having trouble finding something that is pervasive across all things. We like to think that mathematics applies across all things. It is truth, right? Things can change behind the scenes. There's things we don't understand yet. The theory of everything, right? The overarching standard truth. You can seek the truth, but most people find things that relate to their experiences and are truth to them. So really cool. Lots of almost philosophy in this. So really enjoyed it. It just made the story that much better. And again, the last piece that ties it in right at the end, Wit, if art is eternal, why does it depend so much on the audience? That was like, boom, kind of wrapped up the book in a nice little bow. And it really just, the last scene ties you in and makes you want to read the next one. So I'm looking forward to it. Great book, even better than the original. So yeah, Brandon Sanderson did an excellent job with Words of Radiance. Buy your books used, and be sure to read this trilogy.